Hi everyone, welcome to today's episode. So we have my good friend Guo Kai here. Dr. Guo is the president of CF40 Research Institute, one of the top think tanks in China. Previous to that, Dr. Guo has served at IMF in DC and many years at the People's Bank of China, conducting monetary policies. And he's also at the forefront of the last round of China-US trade negotiations. So his knowledge expands in many, many different areas. So today I'm very glad to have Dr. Guo with us to talk about the current state of the global economy and where we think China macro is going. Welcome. Thank you again.
Yes. I guess the biggest surprise was the renewed trade war between China and U.S. and the U.S. with entire world actually. And the resilience of Chinese economy, even when facing with such high tariffs. We thought this year will be a recovering year from very, very low base last year. But we didn't expect that the tariff could go to that high. And the tariff apparently had no impact on China's export. That's also a big surprise. What happened afterwards was two things. One is Chinese economy showed remarkable resilience, particularly on the export side. Although overall export to the U.S. declined by somewhere around 30%, but the entire export to the rest of the world more than compensated for that.
It's very interesting that you mentioned the housing market. Let's dig a little deeper in that, because I feel like I'm a long-term follower of CF40 research. I feel like a lot of the logic you laid out last year was pretty solid, and some of it actually got realized. You were too humble in saying it didn't realize, because you called the bottom of volume for first and second hand property transaction combined, and this year we did see a bottom of that. And if you look closely to the credit cycle, actually I would say that the newly generated sort of contraction from property and affiliated sectors has stopped this year after the second quarter. So these are all positive signs. So looking into next year, do you still stick to your view that we should be soon seeing a bottoming of the property market, or do you think we need to adjust that assessment?
You're right. I think in terms of transaction volumes, it did stabilize at very low levels, which is slightly above our predicted the rock bottom level of Chinese housing market. And the credit squeeze that is emanated from the housing correction seems to be stopped. Credit growth actually this year is quite okay if you look at data.
If you adjust for the swap loans.
Yes. Exactly. So going into next year, I do expect that we are entering. If you think about Chinese housing adjustment is like L-shaped adjustment, we probably will be entering this horizontal part of L. I'm not expecting a strong recovery of the market, but if we're entering the L part, the horizontal part, the drag to the economy, the squeeze on the credit creation will stop. That will be a very, very good news for the entire macro economy. But if the housing sector started to stop bleeding, I think the incentive for the household to make up that losses through saving will also be less. That will also be a positive to consumption. So all in all, we think, following this year's moderate growth of consumption, next year consumption will be even better. We're not going to see blockbuster consumption growth, but it's going to be on a recovery path. That's our view.
I see what you mean. Less drag from the property sector, and we can expect to see some propensity of consumption to return. Maybe not to the pre-pandemic level, but a recovery nevertheless. Actually, we've seen that in the later part of the housing correction, a large-scale housing correction in many economies. Before that, we don't necessarily see a pickup in housing transaction right away, definitely not a V-shaped pickup, but households do start to feel better to resume their consumption, including some of the discretionary consumption items. They sort of let go of because they needed to oversave.
Yeah, and if you look at slightly of a longer horizon, I tend to think that the very high housing prices is a tax on the young generation.
Yes.
You know, once this very acute phase of adjustment is over, I think eventually the younger generation will be subject to actually lower taxes on their income, given they don't need to spend that much on housing. If you add everything up, if this year is 5% and everything seems to be better next year, could it be more than 5%? I don't know yet, but you know, I'm pretty sure that next year we're going to have quite robust growth. I think the government probably will target 5% growth, real, and we will achieve that 5% next year.
That is very refreshing. It's the first time we are more upbeat than market consensus since 2020, because things tend to move together. You have real growth stabilizing a bit, especially domestic demand, and then you have nominal growth picking up even more. And then you translate into US dollar terms, that could be a pretty steep improvement, because everything moves together and amplifies.
Yes.
This year, China growth in US dollar terms is probably going to be like 3.5 to 3.8. Next year, we're probably going to see, if you price in 3 to 4% appreciation, it could be more than 8%. That's a big jump.
Exactly.
And for the first year, it could grow faster than the US since 2021.